I am incredibly excited to introduce our next speaker to the stage. His name is Yaroslav, and he runs a company called Railsware. And those of you that have built one successful product that has found product market fit know how hard it is to accomplish that. Yaroslav is a person that has been building products for decades and has the team that is behind products like Calendly. They've built several of their own, including products like Coupler.io, TitanApps.io, Mailtrap.io, and has been working with unicorns that have raised over $1 billion in collective funding to build products and just produces hit after hit after hit after hit. And I'm incredibly excited for him to come up and share the framework that he uses with his team to help make sure that products actually land and get traction with the customers that they're designed for, because you have to understand how unusual this track record is. We all know how high the risk profile is in building technology products and finding product market fit. And so with all of that, I want to invite all of you to help me welcome to the stage the incredible Yaroslav Lazor.
Hi, everyone. Marcel just broke my mic. The clicker. All right, so I'm going to walk you guys through the framework of that we call BRIDGeS. So basically, we're figuring out, all of you guys are figuring out what's happening within your businesses and what is the next thing that you do. You have a million ideas. You're trying to put it all together, right? And then if you feel that I'm talking too fast, there's a lot of information to go through. So please just raise your workbooks, shake them off so that I calm down a bit. So you're thinking you're building this, right? The beautiful castle, you have the idea, you have the product, you have the success. And as we were building our own products and we were building products for a lot of our clients as a consultancy, they all say, I have it in my head, just go and build this. But it doesn't always work like that, does it? So, but this is how it happens. You look at the picture, idea, product, success, $1 billion company. We were pitched a lot of $1 billion companies throughout our life. But eventually, often it works like that. So you do the wrong things, you focus on the wrong things. The team dynamics goes down because the team might fight you and say, I'm not really sure if this is something we want to do, if this is the right thing to do. Then you start quarreling a bit, going back and forth. Then you waste time and resources. And one of the most important things is you're wasting time and resources of the founders because they focus with the team to build the wrong thing, step by step. And the founder's time is very limited, right? And then eventually it can lead to failure, which can lead to pivot and hopefully into success, right? So what leads to that wrong turn? I think we figured that out because we built probably 35 to 40 products, give or take. Some of them turned to be $1 billion company, some of them did not. So when you're focusing with limited resources, you're burning your time and money, right? You're burning the focus of founders, which is one of the most important things, because even money is more, you can figure out what's your burn, but you don't know what the founder's time and founder focus time is. And then you're drowning in stress and panic, endless debates. Hopefully that's not your case, and then there's much more success in your life. But you can have episodes of that, and this is really not great. So instead, you can figure out what is it you want to build from the roadmap perspective, and what you need to do is go all the way back and focus on the problem space. It often starts with building the idea. It often starts with you telling a direction in which you want to take this as a feature or as a solution to the personas that you're working with. But your team doesn't know that, and team doesn't know what's happening in your head. And you might be the one who's spending years, 2 years, 3 years, 6 years. Some people spend 10 years thinking about some space and thinking about some direction. And there's a lot of thinking process that's accumulated in their head. And they have this whole problem space built in their head that they say it's obvious for everyone and everyone knows that. Nobody knows that. Only people that were thinking for 5, 10, and 20 years, right? So to build a roadmap, you have to go back through priorities. You have to focus on the problem space. You have to understand the problem, and then you have to share that problem space with your team. And then you also have to focus on what is your target addressable market, but what is your go-to-market strategy to that? Even if the target addressable market is $1 billion, $1 trillion market, but what's your go-to-market? Do you have a great go-to-market that you can squeeze that target addressable market? Maybe all the light bulbs are already screwed in, and then there's nothing for you to do in there. Or maybe you don't have that particular idea right now. So that really influences the ideal customer profile and a product market fit for that ideal customer profile. So because for different ideal customer profiles, your product, while being the same functional product, is going to be slightly different, right? And then even with a different go-to-market, your product market fit might be slightly different. So you have to look at it before on the drawing board instead of building it and delivering it. So we have developed this tool. It's mostly an approach or design thinking. How do you do it step by step? And we did it so many times. Within our company, we probably did it already 1,000 times. I personally did about 150 or 200 of them. It's a blur, very hard to say. And it always shows the same pictures. It always paints the same way, and there's always the same outcome. And I want to show it to you guys. So we call it BRIDGeS, and you'll see why in a bit. Where it leads to, so basically, as Marcel said, we build Calendly, and the Calendly story is next. I'll do some of the examples based on the Calendly story. We also help build other companies like BRIDGeS or Parent Square. BRIDGeS was sold to Google. Parent Square is this big company that helps teachers and parents communicate, schools and parents communicate. Next Health is a company that helps doctor offices scale their execution. And this is the actual picture where we did BRIDGeS for Calendly. And at that day, this bald head at the bottom became a billionaire. That's Babato, my friend. We did BRIDGeS together with him. I was the product manager on the product at the time. And we outlined his plan that he was thinking for 6 years before that. He was doing research. He was looking into things, right? And he's had, we worked on taking information from his hat and onto the whiteboard. And we obviously succeeded. The left board is the problem space. The right board is the solution space. While he came to us, he had a lot of solutions, and he wanted this feature and that feature, and Outlook integration, and Microsoft Exchange integration, and Yahoo integration, and so on. What really helped to push Calendly into $1 billion company and not a $1 million credit card debt is the left space, which was the problem space. When you work with your team and you work with your engineers, they build what they understand rather than what you want them to build, right? So this is the time when you expand the problem space into a network or a map of information that can then be layered onto your team. And we're going to talk more about that. So it's in Tope's words, without the framework, we would have wasted precious development resources and time and run things and making the right things at the right time. Let me build a multi-billion-dollar company. It actually understates it, but I hope that this presentation will spread some more light. So about Railsphere. So Railsphere is a product studio. We're 200 people, 31 countries actually as of this morning, and 100 cities. So we're really spread out, and we were doing remote before it was cool. We influence the way the companies are managed. We build 3 products that are considered semi-successful it's not $1 billion companies, but they're definitely on a path. Mailtrap, Coupler, and Titan Apps, you can look them up. I'm not gonna spend too much time on them. But basically, a lot of them, all of them were built with love and nurtured within our own problems, and then put to community and then grow. Actually, there's more than 3 products now because we started making, we started partnering with entrepreneurs, non-technical founders, with us in order to put together our forces and build more products, because we figured that our product is actually to build products. So that's the main product. So very often you look at, what you look at what is it you want to build, and everyone would definitely like a Death Star, right? It's a great concept. It has tennis courts most likely and great restrooms, and it has great movie theaters and stuff like that. And why not build all those features in, right? All your ideas that come to mind when you drive your business, you can build it all in and create a Death Star. But there's some questions of resources. Empire definitely handled better. And then what you really need is the guy on the right. But how to figure that out? So BRIDGeS will help you prioritize, clarify, collaborate, and reduce bias, and save time and resources. I got to test it with some of you. It was with Summer. Where are you, Summer? Here you are, Summer. And it was with, who else? I really have a better name. Yeah, you guys. It was great to test this framework, to roll it in, and then to actually see what SaaS Academy is, what kind of caliber of people and what you guys are troubled with, and to see the preliminary success. At first, it's tough. So when we were doing those inceptions, we were closing people in a room for 8 hours, 2 days in a row. It was like a very meticulous 2 days process. And then we would close them in a room with tea and snacks and coffee, and we would take away their laptops and their phones and everything, and then we would do it on paper. So they're like pay close and full attention. We don't do it as tough anymore, but basically everyone has to focus and everyone has to talk. For whatever reason, humans are really great at saying, okay, let's take the whatever idea, best idea we have, and go build it for 6 months, and then we'll see what happens, instead of talking for 1 day and actually rearranging a lot of the elements. So, BRIDGeS has actually 4 steps. We will figure out the subject and the problem, and I'll talk about that, what it is. Then we'll go into the prioritization exercise, because after you figure what are your problem space, then you need to prioritize it because it has layers. Then we'll talk a bit about solution variation, quickly run through it, but roadmaps is something that everyone built. We have a certain way of doing it, and we'll discuss that. Solution variations, because you can build your app, it was mobile first, now it might be AI first. You can build it on a pager, you can build it for a watch, you can build a GPT nowadays, right? You can build a spreadsheet. There's a lot of ways of doing the solution, right? And then the solution breakdown is just figuring out what are the functional elements and which one do you need to do first in order to start doing your proof of concept or go to market, or further on, how do you want to extend your functionality and go further? So we're going to focus right now on subject description and the prioritization exercise. Okay, so eventually what you want to arrive is this. It's the same picture as the previous one. I think it's page 46 for you guys in your workbooks, and you will be able to trace that in. So the problem space, you have the subject cars. The subject cars are green. Subjects are a persona. It's a real life role. It can be an institution, it can be a company, it can be a building. Buildings also, have problems and we can solve it for them. It can be any kind of stakeholder involved. It can be anyone that is going to be involved in your problem space. And talking about it will give the members of this discussion a lot of inside information that you have in your head and that you use in order to make decisions. What is it that you're going to build? But they don't know that. So what we need to do is extract it from you and put it on the board and get a commitment from you, like that's it. So in your workbooks, think about your subjects. And I'll give you a minute to think who are those personas that you're focusing on, and try to go broad. Try to go broader than the direct personas. There can be sub-personas. There can be a business owner, but there can be for example, a SaaS business owner or a bar business owner or a service provider, and they will be slightly different, and they might be different for you too. So you can jump into, for example, if you look at Uber has generically simple personas, has more than that, but it's a simple example, right? Uber has a driver, a passenger, and the Uber company itself. Uber also partners with taxi companies, so that which I figured because I called an Uber, but a taxi showed up. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. So Uber will, there's a taxi company. And taxi companies also have their stake. They want something. So you can write that down, right? And so analyze, and we're going to analyze one of your subjects. So I will give you a minute to, or 45 seconds to write who are your subjects, who are those personas that you're working with, and it'll be easier to do the thinking process after that. All right. So the next thing is those personas have their life happening to them. They have benefits, something that they want, and they would be glad for, let's say, you to give them. So what are their benefits? What is it they want? What do they hope for? It's a value for them. So if your solution provides that, they'll be happy. They have risks. There's something that they might be freaking out about or worried about. And if you will help them with their risks, they will also be happy because they'll get something shown to them that mitigates those risks. They have issues. Issues are like the actual problem that you're sure they have, and they're struggling with those problems. So if your solution helps them with that, that's great. Those three things are incredibly important for your team because typically they don't know what are the details of those. What are the problems that we're solving? You tell them. You typically work with them from like the functionality and solution and feature perspective, right? But they don't know what's happening in your hat, and behind the scenes in your hat, it's very different than it is live. Then there's a thing called domain knowledge. It's something that you know that other people don't know. For example, in Calendly, it was that if you send your available times in the first email that you send to the person, that you have a 80% more likelihood of getting the meeting with the person and then landing a sale. But if you'll say, oh, let's come up with some time, and then you go back and forth with emails, and there's a very low likelihood. So in this domain knowledge helped engineers understand how important it is, and they started reshaping that functionality. And the designers and the product managers, everyone were thinking about how to deliver that domain knowledge that we just heard. There are goals. It's something that you aspire to do. And those goals, believe it or not, are often ununderstood by your teams because eventually when you say, hey, let's do this, that it has all of those elements in it and goals are within it. So talking about goals gives everyone space and flexibility to think how we can deliver those goals. Maybe there's another way. And when you're sitting down and writing code, you might find a library, you might find a different approach, you might find something, and then you're like, oh, I remember we were talking about this goal. There's actually a cheaper way, 10 times cheaper, 100 times cheaper than doing that. Let me go back to the product manager, to the CEO, to the CTO, and tell him about it and talk about it because I remember that goal. And then there are a card which is called go-to-market. You don't have it in your workbooks because I added it after we printed them. And the go-to-market is actually incredibly important, if not the most important. Because when you build a product and you don't have an approach, how do you push it to the market? What's the principle? How is it going to happen? What is your unfair advantage within the go-to-market? Well, you'll beat the competition. Maybe you know someone. Maybe there's a particular person you can partner with. Maybe you can do affiliate. Maybe you can do a YouTube channel. There's so many marketing channels nowadays, right? Except for just, let's say, Google AdWords or SEO, or inbound or outbound. There's an incredible amount, right? You can work with influencers, and you can propose them a certain deal, and you know that those influencers. So go-to-market cards close to that persona, basically helping you to think marketing-wise within the product. And then your product will change because different go-to-markets will make a slightly different product market fit. They'll make a slightly different product. And if you think about them early on, you can save pivots, iterations, and series A, B, C, D, E investments. So I'll give you another 45 seconds to go to page 50, I believe. And you can take one subject as an experiment. And within that subject, you can write their issues, benefits, and risks, right? Like the driver has a benefit of knowing who comes to him, right? That doesn't work. There's a marker. Here we're here. So the driver in Uber knows where the car is. And the issue is that he like forgot a taxi company, and that would be the passenger. Go broad and think critically of them, and then just feel the ones that you know well about your persona. I think you got a feel of this. There's a reason why it takes 8 hours. It's a deep process. You can do it later in the workbooks, and then if we have time in the end, we can go back to that and maybe do some questions. But eventually, what you do is you take subject after subject. You think about them. You think about what it is there, and then you have your businesses, so you already know. And as a result, you start building this map. You can eventually rip the pages out of the workbook and layer them down, or turn it into cards. And we really love cards because it's such a flexible and dynamic process. You can move them around. You can create layers. You can move the important things into one corner. You can clean up something that is not that important for you. So using a Figma, we have a Figma template. In the end, there will be a QR code that you can use that, but you can use any of your tools that kind of is a whiteboarding solution. So as a result, you're starting to build this map of the problem space. The next thing would be prioritization. So while you will know a lot about the persona, about the subject, and you'll know about their issues, benefits, and risks, you will some of them are more important, and some of them are less important. We have a absolute prioritization system that we use, not like P1, P2, P3. We're using must, should, could, and won't. Must is something deadly. Like you must have that, otherwise you cannot go to market. The other competitors have that, for example, or it's something that the persona, the subject will not be interested in buying from you if you don't have that. So when you mark your cars with musts, you know that those are the problems you have to focus on. The second one is shoulds. Shoulds are the priority where if you do not tackle those issues, benefits, and risks, you are going to bring frustration to the user. And then a frustrated user is not the best user, but they can bear it still. If you will deliver them the must issues, benefits, risks first, if it'll work, it'll make their life possible, but slightly frustrating. So then you need to cover the shoulds. Then you'll have a lot of coulds. And could is like, oh, that would be so nice, and that would be so cool. But you also understand that most likely you don't have time for that in the first iterations. Or maybe if what we call is low-hanging fruit. So if the could takes you 5 minutes to do, you could do it. Or if it's something that the team really is aspired about, and you can bring on the team dynamics up, a team being happy that they're delivering this, you could do it. Then there's won'ts. And won'ts should not be ignored. Meaning, like when you slap a won't on something, what you're saying is, hey, let's not focus on that. Like seriously, do not leave the cards blank, because then it's an open question, and your team might be like, oh, they didn't put anything on it. Let me do that because I really like to do that. And when you put a won't on it, you just say, we won't do it. Let's commit that we won't do it. We won't focus on it right now. And it's very important to put those two. Then you're at the prioritization exercise, it will turn your map from this into that. And subjects also should be prioritized, because typically you have much more subjects. They're just those neighboring subjects that also somehow take part in your journey. So you prioritize all of that, and what it gives you, it creates a layer of information. Yeah, go ahead. Subjects, so basically those are your personas, right? So let's say you work with the Uber drivers and they're a must. For Uber, working with the taxi companies, it's a could or a should, right? That's why they did it so late in the game. So it's not as important. For example, we were just incepting this product, It's doing recruitment. It's helping restaurants to recruit employees. But there's also delivery drivers who could bring referrals into it. And then delivery drivers, they're like, you're not going to start with them. You're not going to think about the referral program at the beginning. So you're going to put them away from the center of the map, and you're going to put a CUT on it. But what's really important is that all the cards have to go on the board. Typically, what happens with the CEO is the CEO keeps talking and talking and talking and talking about some stuff. He's not talking because he's an idiot. He's repeating himself all the time because nobody listens to him, or he doesn't hear that there's a feedback that somebody's listening to him. This board is an answer to everyone to be heard, because your customer support will eventually come in here, and then your marketing team will come in here, and even your development team can come into the board. They're also personas, because product is not just your product, it's your clients, your team, their children, their dogs, and their kids, their schools. It's maybe not that far, but eventually you put all of the problems of your company. When you start the product, it's simple because it's just an idea. But when you have your existing company, your customer support problems are also problems that have to do with your product. And when you put your customer support problems in here, your engineers will look at that and they'll say, oh, I know how to fix that. Why didn't you guys tell me that it's such a big pain? And they're like, well, we were telling you. Oh, sorry, I was busy. But it's incredibly hard to have a dialogue or a monologue about such a huge amount of information. It typically takes those 8 hours to put all those things on the board. But then it enables you to pinpoint, you point on something, right? You say, okay, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this card. Now, this card and that go to market. How do we connect them together? It is impossible to have a human dialogue where you would say, oh, remember 17 minutes ago you were talking about that, and 3 minutes ago you were talking about this. What about we connect them together? When you don't see them, you cannot point to them. You cannot extract it, and when you extract this information and you slap it on the board, you are able to talk, and everyone is able to talk, right? And then when you prioritize it together, you'll have some fights. Someone will say, no, it's a huge problem. And someone will say, no, I don't think it's a problem at all. And then you'll have a constructive dialogue, but about one card, not about our whole strategy is bad, our whole strategy is shit, right? But you're talking about one particular card and a collaboration of those cards together. This gives you, I think this would solve all the world problems. I'm Ukrainian, so if we would put Ukraine, Russia, and America on it and do an inception board, all the bullshit would be cut off, and then all the priorities would be done, and we would end the war really in one day. But hopefully they will let me run the inception with them, but they probably won't because there's a lot of bullshit. Inception cuts all of this. So BRIDGeS session, or we would call it inception, but BRIDGeS is a better term. BRIDGeS cuts all of that. It gives you ability to have a very balanced dialogue about all of the elements within the company, within the product, within the business, still on the problem space. We're still not talking about solutions. We're not talking about infrastructure and technical problems and so on. And then this pinpointing of the card. So I had this CEO pitching me this idea, and we partnered eventually with them. And he kept talking about this Uber driver that is going to bring referrals and he'll bring employees. And then when everyone was ignoring him, because the Uber driver goes like way beyond in like 2 years from now. Like, why do we talk about him? But when we put him on the board, he stopped talking. He stopped repeating himself like a broken record. And we put a priority on that. He was like, okay, I was hurt. I now know that my idea was hurt and my relationship with this delivery company was hurt. Everything is great and it's not going to be lost because I see it on the board. And it has a priority on it. And now I understand that, that there's no point of talking about it. Or if someone keeps talking about something, you just point it on the board and say, okay, we have it, we captured it, great. So then, now to your homework, the solution space. So I'm actually gonna jump ahead for a second because I feel like it. And then, so what happens is your problems on the left will help you to build your solutions. Because you know what your problems are. You know what is the most important thing. And now they can drive your solutions. And now you can think about what is the most important thing that we want to solve because you come from the problem space. And problem space is very often much simpler. If we go into solution space, the solution space consists of the functional groups right? Like the write, communication, payment, security, account creation. And then it consists of features or functions, the little cards. Each one has its own color. It's very important. It'll help you build a roadmap later. So when you build those, it's very hard to prioritize them because you're like, oh, I think, this card over here, whatever it is, write types. Write types is really important. But what you're doing is you're thinking few steps in a row because you're not thinking about the problem. You're thinking like how, and if you don't do bridges and if you don't know the problem, what are you even thinking about? You're thinking about everyone has their own bridges in their head. This is what's happening when the team comes together, and everyone points to their own cards in their hat instead of pointing to actually like one page. And they're not on one page. And then they try to prioritize it. And they prioritize their delusions and ideas, right? The more people work in the company, the more they kind of understand the problem space. But I run so many inceptions, and there were people in the room, and I was extracting the issues and benefits and risk, and I wrote the first layer, and then I wrote the second one. With Summer, we did it, and Summer was like, automation is my thing. And then after that, we wrote like 10 cards, what is automation for Summer specifically. And then we had this meeting with this big company. They're like 50 plus million ARR, and we were providing them our consultancy services. And I run the team. There's like 12 people in the room and a lot of people remote. And we write down the problems. And then the guy at the back of the room like, oh, that's why you asked that's why you asked me to do this 2 years ago. Now I get it. And I was like, Jesus, it's ridiculous because they don't take time to communicate and understand the problems. I don't know what is it with human beings. I think everyone thinks they're geniuses and they have the idea already and we're just gonna go and do it. And developers are often, I'm a software engineer, I'm a developer, so they're often like spiders. They want to like take a piece of the fly and go into the corner and just eat it up until it completely dissolves. And it's a great process, it's a flow, right? And then going out of your shell and talking about issues and problems and solution space and this, it's not that great. But I'll tell you a story how that helped some of them, right? So, and then eventually what you do is you take your functional groups, you take your functions and you prioritize them too. And every time you put a priority on top of the card, you have a dialogue. You have a small dialogue in your team, which is an important communication. And our brain works in mysterious ways, but the amount of information you will remember from BRIDGeS session rather than a monologue is remarkable. You typically remember, it's like the book. You wrote the book. You remember the beginning and the end, but not the middle. And in BRIDGeS, you have all in front of you. So every card you look at, you will start hearing voices in your head, a little movie, how did you guys talk about it and what did it mean? So our brain is great at networks, at like neural nets. So basically this is like a neural net of information that is now the only neural net of information for the whole company, and everyone can relate to it and everyone can talk about it, and it has the same terms and the same names and the same everything, and you can just pinpoint with your finger on that. And it's incredibly powerful because it takes like a square root of communication out of your system or even more than that. So now you can relate what solutions are for which problems. And then you can go back and talk about the problems. Sometimes you can say, oh, this is a must. This card is a must. And like, and we have this framework. We have about 300 frameworks that we invented, but one of them is like, do you think or do you know? And like, oh, I think. Okay, we're about to build a business on that, I think. What about we take that one card and validate it with our users? Let's go and talk to someone. Do you have someone we can call right now? Yes, we have someone. Okay, you call to them and you're like, hey, so is this problem big for you or not? And they're like, no, it's it's something I just mentioned. I got it in my head. And so you validate it with, let's say, 10 to 20 people, and you understand that this is not such a big problem. They're not going to buy if it's not such a big problem for them. But you are able to validate one card. Instead of, let's say, doing a customer interview and kind of understanding all of it, you just validate one card. And then you change the priority. Priority changes prioritization of your solution space, and it goes like over and over again. And it gets just better over time once you're used to this system. So there's the working in solution space. You do functional groups. Each one has its own color. You add the functions and epics to it. Then you prioritize. And you do the must, which is deadly. Like we can't move from here if you don't have it. The shoot, which is frustrating. Could, eye candy, and then won't, like we won't do it. Team, we won't do it. Right? And then you trace your solution to your problem. And what's incredible is that you will find missing islands. So when you're here, there will be solutions, because this is how our brain thinks, there'll be solutions, and the business owner will say like, okay, so now we need to do utility rebilling. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, utility rebilling is an important thing. We have it right now. No, we even have it in the problem space. Like, there's 0 problems on that. Like, oh, yeah, you're right. We didn't talk about it. Like, why did you keep it to yourself? I didn't think it's such a big deal. But when you're on the left side in the problem space, at some point you ask, okay, so there's anybody in the room that wants to put any more cards in here? And people are like, no, that's it. That's completely it. But then you go back to solution space and you start having islands of solutions go back into the problem space. And the people start telling stories. Oh, you know what? We have those 3 customers that we were working on. And yeah, we kind of like experimented with this new billing model with them, but we would just do it through email. So don't worry about it. But then we'll drop it on your hat when you're not ready for it. And then you go back, you bring this island back into problem space, reprioritize it, and then you go back to solution space. And you do it over and over again up until it's completely like no one can put any more cards onto it. That creates a really great onboarding for the team. So the key members, not everyone can withstand such a intensive intellectual collaboration, but like the team members, the VP level people, the engineering managers, the CTOs, the lead developers, they should know what is it that they're building. They should consciously understand.
Yeah, great job.
And as a result, what we do is we take this functional group and we create a roadmap. We start taking the most important cards out of it. So how to build a roadmap? You take the prioritized cards, which are here. That screenshot was not updated, which is fine. So we take the must cards, and you're figuring out how are you going to build it step by step. How are you going to come up with a roadmap on the left that is going to work, right? And then let's say the minimum viable Uber solution would be to have an app which has from 2 locations set up, just 2 edit boxes, right? And then you click the button request the ride, it asks you for a credit card, it charges you, and then nothing else happens. Uber makes money. This is the only thing that the app has. It's a proof of concept. It would work. Then probably you need to call the driver. But if you just build those, it'll work. When we were building Calendly, we built this left board and we built the right board. And the Calendly founder wanted an Outlook integration and Microsoft Exchange and Yahoo Calendar integration and Apple Calendar integration and all of that. And everything for an incredibly generous budget of $150,000. And we were like, we wrote it all down, because you start fighting at that moment, like you're done. So we wrote it all down, and then we're like, oh, dope. So we're not going to do any of that. We're going to focus on Google Calendar, and we're going to do a proof of concept from Google Calendar only, because it has the best API, the most consistent method to connect with it, because the rest of the stuff is just like a technical craziness. You cannot do an Outlook integration, and I think they still don't have it after all those years. And we're gonna build the rest later. And he's like, no. Like, what do you mean no? And he's like, well, I want all of it. I was like, great. It's great that you want the Death Star. I get it, but like it is impossible to build it. What we'll do is we'll create the core of the product. And then we're going to unwind all the administrative functionality up until you're out of money, and that's it. And then you go run it and make it a great company. He's like, no, I need all of it. I was like, you're not going to get it. And he's like, I'm going to leave the room if this is what you say. I was like, you can go. And he's like, but I want the product. I was like, I understand, but it's impossible to build this product that you want for $150,000. You're going to scratch all of them, and none of them will turn into a product. And he's like, I'm leaving. I'm like, go. So we opened the door, left. And the team is like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm not going to burn his money. I don't want him to be, he's about to take his 401k and put it on the table and build the product. I'm not going to burn it. And the team is like, but we need the client. I was like, well, it doesn't matter. He will probably go to someone else and they will burn his money. And then he'll write me an email 10 years later that I was right. Or maybe not. He stayed there for 2 minutes just to check if I'm bullshitting him, came back in the room, and became a billionaire. If we would have this fight before, he saw So it was all in front of him. There was billion functions, there was billion integrations, and there was the problems. And like, this problem space in this Google, it cannot be connected like that. And he knew that that's the reality. I don't know who was he was checking. I'll probably call him and ask him. So what we started doing after that, in terms of roadmap, we took a hard-coded calendar API key that we did in a console. We created one page. Calendly, technically, let's face it, Calendly is just one page, nothing else. It's a booking page. We created the booking page with a hard-coded calendar, with a hard-coded 9 to 6, into a task calendar with a 15 minutes breakdown of event types. And we just generated that page in 3 days. And we made it to work. So you click on the days, and you see which times are available. We go to the testing calendar, and we block out some time, and the times change. And we were like, cool, this is pretty much the product. And the founder looked at it, our team looked at it, and they were like, oh, this is what we've been talking about for the last 2 days, all those cars and moving them around. They started creating, we created this like first outskirt of the product and how it looks like. And then I sent it to my whole team, and our team was like 56 people at the time, and they were all keep refreshing and clicking and booking and changing, and Google didn't show us any errors in the API. And I was like, okay, that's it. We don't need any caching engine. We don't need any harder integration than that. It just worked. So that's it. That's the product. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a login screen, of course. So because if you start with the login screen, and this is very comfortable for engineers to start with something they know and they built many times before, because they can deliver quick. But this is not your risky functionality. This is not what will make change. And you're burning the money for that. You should start with the hardest stuff, with the must stuff, and figure out how it works and put the most efforts into figuring out the most troublesome element. And this is how you build your roadmap. You take it from the riskiest to the hardest thing and build a prototype and then go from there. And we build it, and then we did the rest of the stuff, the rest of the interfaces, designed and redesigned them, and created a wizard and an event type editor and blah, blah, blah. And then he was out of money. And then we took the product and we showed it to all of our clients back then as a consultancy. And we showed it to BRIDGeS, and BRIDGeS was like, oh, cool, we like it. And they started booking meetings with universities and schools and other people, and those people started booking meetings with other people. The beauty of Calendly is that it's kind of in your face. When someone sends you a link to a product, you're like, oh, I'll check it later, and then you add it into not to-do list. But with Calendly, it kind of goes into your face. So, and then this is how we started his go-to-market strategy. So we built both the product and the go-to-market strategy, and pushed it off the cliff. And basically, BRIDGeS was the one that equipped us with information, because every time we had a dialogue or a conversation, we could point to anything and talk about it and say, okay, let's figure this out. Now you have Google, now you have ChatGPT deep research, and you can just do a deep research on the spot on a particular card, on a particular subject, and you will know the answer. But this gives you a map. It gives you a battlefield where you figure what you do without building it, and then you're redoing it and redoing and pivoting and so on. So because this software, we built millions of dollars of software that was never used. And for clients, we built ridiculous amount of software, fighting them like, don't do it, and they would still do it because they were funded well. We built this, one of them was like $5 million thing that Gates Foundation gave us money for. We built it, and we told that it's not gonna work. It didn't work, and we just throw it away. It's crazy. Instead of Gates Foundation giving them those 5 million, give all of you guys, and it makes sense. So what have we covered today? Start with the problem and expand the problem into your team. Your team has to understand the problem, the goals, the benefits, the issues, risks, the domain knowledge. What is it that you know that other people don't know? Be adamant about it. So you really have to interrogate the founders, and you have to interrogate the stakeholders up until they're like, there's nothing else, stop. And then you're sure there's nothing else. So you understand the problems, so don't start with a solution, and structure your thoughts. So bring anyone on the same page with cards. And even with existing companies, it's just gonna be a slightly bigger map. That's also okay. Use BRIDGeS to move from chaos to order by pointing on everything and talking about every element of that. And prioritize wisely. really put your consciousness in that, because I think it's a must, and this is a must. Might be a difference between $1 billion company and $1 million in credit card debt. So don't do that. And that's about it. My LinkedIn is here. If you want, let's say, a more particular conversation about your product, I'll do the best I can. There's a lot of you in the room, and we're starting 2 new products on top of our 3 products, but I'll do the best I can. And then you can chat with our team on BRIDGeS and more. We do sessions of BRIDGeS for our clients, and we help them with that. And I'm sure we're going to do some 30 minutes call with them, like a free call that you can guys talk to our team and do a particular session. Or just catch me. I'm going to be whole 2 days here, so talk to me about it if you want to. And that's about it.
You want to take questions?
I can take questions all day long.
I think we have time for like 2 or 3 questions. So let's throw the talk box around, shall we? We have one over here. All right, Monty, awesome.
I'm Monty. We automate repetitive tasks for healthcare organizations so staff can focus on critical care. So you showed us, thanks very much, that was really enjoyable, I appreciate it. So you showed us how we can prioritize the roadmap for getting the core aspect of our product. We already have, at least in my mind, the core aspect of our product. Do you have any tips on prioritizing new features past the core aspect of our product?
Yep, the same way. So let's say in your case, there would be a doctor who would be a persona, or a nurse, or a like a staff on the desk. You can go deeper into personas. So basically, slightly different personas will have slightly different issues, benefits, risks. You have different goals for them as well, and you have different domain knowledge. So you break away the personas, kind of split them, right? Not just a doctor, but let's say a ER doctor or a like day doctor. They will have different problems. And as you talk to them, or you already know, and you extract more and more information, and you start knowing so much stuff about your user, you're like, oh wow, this is interesting. And that, then the moment you know this and you prioritize them, the ideas start coming how to connect your main like feature flow, like feature set with those people, how to make their life a bit better. But the more personas and sub-personas you add, you start seeing patterns. So, oh, this guy has the same problem, and this person has the same problem, this person has the same problem. Or if you make it more abstract, you can do like a 2-step features, not one, that would cover all of those personas. And then you kind of like market them through from within the app, where they would do something, and you would say, oh, it looks like you need this, right? Oh, you can need like scheduled tasks, for example. Do you want to schedule the task for the, and you kind of promote it to them, and they start using it, and you get the feedback. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
For Monty, everyone, 3, 2, 1. Let's take one more over here somewhere. Yeah, right here. Nice toss.
Summer.
Yeah, Summer.
There we go. I'm glad I didn't drop that. That would have been embarrassing. Okay, not really a question. I just wanted to say thank you for doing that with our team, because what it did was our product developers gave them the knowledge and kind of understanding of what these features were for. And then on the other side, our sales, our onboarding, our customer service, tech support. Then once the solutions were all, once we got through with the problems, which the developers started to understand, when we moved it over to the solutions, they understood how much went into it and how difficult it was. It wasn't just as easy just to come up with an easy solution without some risk or problem. So it helped connect the whole team, and it was great. So I encourage anybody to use it. So
Thank you,
that's
Summer.
it. Yep.
For Summer, everyone, 3, 2, 1. Let's bring the talk box back up here.
Yeah, and then just in
throwing
general, team dynamics is an important element of your product. When your team, when your team feels bad or not excited because of something, they're not going to deliver the product. So you need to understand the team dynamics in it. And the more they know and the more they understand, the more they are able to perform better through consciousness and understanding, which really all of us need. That's it. Thank you, guys.
For Yaroslav, everyone.
Thank you.